So what do we have here? So we have just some vagary about what's happening at the what's happening at the first tikkun there. So let's go to the number Dalet over here. V'yarki bechinas eilachim ispashnim the orach kol olamos malamal malamal. And he said it not the way that I said it. He said that they spread into the world, going from the bottom to the top. Mispashtim the roch of the yamin is small, so they go that way. They cover the whole length from the bottom to the top, and they also cover the right and the sek besod chesad of the gevuros. Very still, it's really vague. The Yavoris say that his pashtus ba'olamos bri yitzir, and then we're going to also explain, we're going to go over that, how this also spreads into olamos, not just partsufim going downwards, but into olamos. So it says those specific olamos, bri yitzira and asiyah, ki yikar v'bria shuhu reisha. So the main thing, the root of it is in bria, which is the head. Mispashim ba'acharim. He's talking about the snake here. Mispashim ba'acharim the yitzira, and then it goes onto the back of the yitzira. Shuhu b'bechinas achrei kasvin dezer anpin, which is the same concept he says at the back of the back of zer anpin, the back of the shoulder zer anpin. Umeir b'bechinas ach ba'ach, and it shines at the concept of ach ba'ach al azanva shuhu asiya, which is the tail, which is so he's talking about the snake. And the snake, the head of the snake is in Bria, and the tail of the snake is in Asiya. So the metaphor of the snake is really not easy for me to hear it. So Vivarki Koech Acharayim and Mispasha B'Yitzira, so the power of that Acharayim, which spreads from the Asiya and Asiya, who sowed Shem Kale, the Tikkun, the Rishon, Hanal. So this is also the concept of the first Tikkun. So how does the first tikkun, which is in Erik Anpin, which is completely kadosh, how does that come out to be a snake in the Olamos Bia? What are we talking about? So the Bazam Aladinim V'Chaklipos V'Achniim, and so I guess it foams means it's angry at them. It uses its din power to humble the klipos. So therefore we said it's something kadosh which exists everywhere. V'Hakadusha Nater, so the Nishmar. So he said, what is it? The Kedusha, this aspect of this snake is able to guard itself from the chizas of the dinim al klipos. Akganus bo shorish laham shachas yanika, but there's still a root in it to spread down yanika the dinim, a certain amount of sustenance to the dinim. But klipos besot elef yomim the whole, which is that concept that we saw Rebbe Shimon said of the 1,000 days of the week. Shehu shorish elef shanos galus, which is the root of the 1,000 years of galus. Now there's last words there where he said he coined the phrase elef yomim the whole, and then he also coins another phrase which he says it's the root of the 1,000 years of galus. I don't know if Galus is 1,000 years or how many years is Galus, but whatever. So let's read the. Is there anything here that you would like particularly to look at? Went through a lot of this. Not now. Okay, let's go on to the next part here. Galufi de Galifi. So Chavakipa call Chachakikos. So the ultimate carving out. So this is the concept of the first tikkun, of the first kli. Shall call a kalim, which is the root of all of the kalim. So he's going on. Ki inyan hakika begiluf hu bechinas kli. Shenaase bo hakika k'day the kababo or v'chakol mitzamsem es or besochel. So everything puts this there. So in other words, the light has to squeeze in to this kli, which is carved. Carved in what? It's carved. So he said, so if you want to know what the root of these kalim is, these galufim, so I'm going to read it again. He says that the secret, he said, the root of the concept of kalim come from the malachim that broke. And now you're in Olam Atikun, and then these Malachim, they're bringing Kedusha back, Nisakta bebechinas kitzonis v'kelim, and they're built in that way. Let's look at number ches, very short, number ches down below. So he says, what exactly does he mean by that? Number ches says, Rei ba'adir b'maram, he says, ki hamalachim kadumoim, which are actually represent the broken shem ben. Heim besod hagilufim, they themselves, the malachim, are the concept of the carvers, of the carvings. Shal Rishima Pirash the Hulamala, where we were talking about the Rishimo, I don't really remember it, that we talked about previously. He says, because according to the way that they prepared at the beginning, now that's the way that the tikkun will work later. Now what does he mean? On the Azad Shema. So his words are Kilefi Ma Shuchuchan Bechem B'Techila. Now, I'm not sure what that means. What is Muchuchan Behem? Is it the fact that they have, like, so you have a Das, and you have a Chesed, you have a Bora, and so on and so forth? So that's the way the tikkun will work when you pair it together, the broken piece, with the name Ma, Adkan. Rei Od Ba'od Sabiura Manal, of Ha'aros of Rei Gam B'Mabasharm, he says, B'Zel Lashono. Because they are aspects of din. They were only female. That from this makes the kalim. So this is a point. His point he wants to say is that the kalim are made by the malach of shemesim. Now we have to figure out does that work out with a snake? I don't know. Because this is the way it goes. Chesed is surrounded, bounded by din. Midas din shelo yisrabit. So that it, and so let me read again. Ki la'olam midas hadin magvil es hachesed shelo yisrabit. So the din tries to keep the chesed down. Kamo hakli hamagvil es hamayim lebili hispashat chutza. V'zucha v'ikur pirish milas kalim. So this, you want to know what the definition of kalim is. And inside of these kalim, which he says are really carved according to the nature of the malachim that died, lives at the place where the kedusha, I guess he means the kedusha, but he means whatever is we're talking about fills them up. So v'heim hamalachim the mesa. So these are actually the malachim. These are ourselves saying malachim that died, which are just nothing but din, and it's carving b'kol makom. So the din apparently does some carving work. I guess that's what he means. So he said, look over there also. So there's another case like that. The kalim, and what are they? The kli chitzon, the zer anpin. Okay, so that's of zer anpin. Zer anpin is the panemius and the chitzonius, or it has the kalim and panemius. So he says the chitzah the zer anpin na'aseh b'biburich malach shemesa would come from the birurim of the malachim. It's a statement. That's what it is. Let's go on for number ches. He says v'shorish ha'elyon shebiburich malach shemesa hu ba'olam harishon is in the very first place. Asher b'tikun the rishon shal shlosha asidikun lidikna the erik anpin hanikra kale. So we don't need them to tell us that the first tikkun is kale. But what I'm thinking over here is that b'shor she'elyon she'birurich malachim. So where do you find the refined part of the malachim, which are kadosh? Shemesu is in the first place. So he means to say in that first place is where you have an aspect of the of this melech that died. Asher b'tikun the rishon shel shlosha asa tikun dikna, so that the first tikkun, the erik anpin hanikra kale, Yisham all of Nivaro Nivchar Muvchar Habirurim Shal Melech Harishon. This is where the choice Birurim of the Melech Harishon go. Shemei Shuhu Hadas Hanikra Bela Ben Baor. I was just looking at the word Bela Ben Baor. It's Bela means swallowed up. The son of what? Baor. It could mean, it usually means Hisorovitz. But at any rate, that's what he's called. He's called Bela Ben Baor. Bela Ben Baor, his Kedusha Dikaparim, winds up going into the first tikkun. which I guess means to say that it has some DNA of Bella. So let's see number test here down below, and let's see if I can get it on the screen. Here it is. I'm still okay, still moving around. I haven't disconnected anything. Okay, now this is all explained in the Eitz Chaim. Nivraru Eloch HaMelachim, that the Melachim are Mizbur. Boaz HaYosim Muvcha Bechem, so that's our quote. He says, Shuhu Bechinos Sheyesh Bechem Me'erik Anpin. So here we're saying what these are aspects, Sheyesh Bechem, that had within themselves something, some essence of Erik Anpin. So in other words, that's that DNA idea again. That somehow these Birurim, they have stamped on them in some way or impressed in them in some way that they belong in Erik Anpin. So they go up in the concept, the female concept, and they become huvrar. Okay? And the rest of it remains down below. So that's the rest of the possible Kedusha. So this particular Kedusha is the DNA of Erik Anpin on it. So the Vadaki ki osach b'bechidah also be'Erik Anpin. So now understand what went into Erik Anpin. Hey b'bechidah ha'sa'ara shebedikna delay k'noida. Now this is a little twist differently. He says what? The aspect that winds up going into Erik Anpin, these are actually the hairs of his, which are the hairs of his delay k'noida. They belong to him. So that's just a statement. K'niskar be'idra. So he says b'tikuni k'nemocha dikra kale asher both plus almim. So now he says this. In that one place, there were three universes. That is Bia. Shehem Gimel Malachim, which are what? In that one place, you have three Malachim. Eluch Machazayim Malachim. Of the seven Malachim, three of them show up at the first. Vehem Bela, Yovav, and Chusha. Now, this is a really complicated issue that I had seen before with the Yaakov Cronenberg. It was not that clear to understand it. You can see him over there. He says over there. So he says, what are the three beginning worlds? The first world, that is the worlds of Bia, have a shorish over there. And it really comes from the three Malachim Rishonim. But here we only want to talk about the first one. So if you look at my Mari Rashbi, you probably get that over there. Bibir, Amirakan. And he said, so that goes on part of what Rebbe Shimon said. That his head was on the back of his shoulders. So we're going to understand this, and we get it to later, the Parshas Nissan. And he says, Alma Kadimah, the Nafik Mitikunda Kadimah. So the first world that you find, or it's located, it comes out from that first Tikkun Adkan. Now I'm not sure what he's doing. He's just trying to tell us that they're there. This is what he's doing here. Behusod Melech Harishon. This is the first king. Now he said things that seem to be contradictory. He says this is the first king, but the first Tikkun has all three in it. That's why I understood what he said. So he says, "Mihu olam arishon kol b'sofa kol tlas almin." Oh, here it is. Look at the Isib of Mabasharon. So we saw that again. So he's over there. He said, "B'kuvar bi'arno shazeh alma kademo bela ben so the das." So what is it? He has the das. Das is 3 in 1. So it always comes das sitting on top of chesed gevura gamken. Shem alma tatayim dimina, which means a world that is lower but to the right. So to the right. V'hinei kenegdam keneged tlas almin. Heim gimel kale. So we have kale, three different kales. The Bahai Tikkun Kadimah. Nimsa Sha Alma Kadimah L'chud Kalu Kol Gimel Acheri. So one way or another, the concept of three is always associated with the first Tikkun Adkan. Now the question, obviously, and it's starting to come back to me a little bit. The question is if you're sitting in a Kedusha Dik environment, and you're at the Tikkun over there by the Peyus, how do you make a transfer from that into the klipa? How does it ever get to the klipa from there? So anyway, that's what we got to find out. V'chein rei b'shar ma'amari Rashbi. Da 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 da. Okay, that's got to be it for this right now.